I was just trying to get my shoes off when my aunt cornered me to gossip about my job situation. Hours later, my cousin's arrogant fiancé smirked that I couldn't even get past security at his dream job. So, I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and told him, "I'm the CEO. See you Monday." This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. The drive to the venue had felt like moving underwater. I had just closed a $12 billion acquisition, the kind that reshapes industries and breaks competitors, but the only thing waiting for me at the end of the road was pity. I pulled up to the glass house, a modern monstrosity of floor-to-ceiling windows that my cousin Bella had insisted on renting. It was a perfect metaphor for my family, transparent, expensive, and completely devoid of warmth. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. Dark circles under my eyes, hair pulled back in a severe knot. I looked exactly like what I was, exhausted. But they would see something else. I walked inside, the click of my heels swallowed by the ambient noise of 100 conversations. Aunt Patricia spotted me immediately. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She just glided over, a predator in pastel chiffon. "Rachel," she whispered, her voice carrying that distinct tone of patronizing sympathy she had perfected over decades. "We didn't think you would come. Given the circumstances." "What circumstances?" I asked, though I already knew. The Whisper campaign. It had started 3 months ago when I went dark to finalize the merger. I had stopped attending Sunday brunches. I had stopped responding to group texts about floral arrangements. To them, silence wasn't focus. It was failure. "We heard about the breakdown," she said, leaning in close, her eyes scanning the room to make sure everyone saw her comforting the fallen niece. "It is so brave of you to show up. Most people would hide away after losing everything. But you know what? We love you anyway. Even if you are broken." I stood there, a glass of lukewarm water in my hand, and felt a strange sensation wash over me. It wasn't anger. Anger is hot. This was cold. Clinical. It was the feeling of analyzing a data set and realizing the numbers didn't add up. They thought I was broken because I was quiet. They thought I was unemployed because I wasn't posting about my hustle on social media. They had built an entire narrative around my failure because it made them feel secure. I could have corrected her. I could have pulled out my phone and shown her the press release that would go live on Monday morning. I could have told her that the company I founded, Ether Logic, had just swallowed its biggest rival whole. But I didn't. I realized something in that moment. Silence wasn't just a byproduct of my work. It was a weapon. Let them talk, I thought. Let them build their little castle of pity. The higher they build it, the further they fall when I pull the foundation out. So I just nodded. I let my shoulders slump slightly, playing the role they had assigned me. "Thanks, Aunt Patricia," I said softly. "It has been a hard few months." She beamed, satisfied. Her world order was preserved. She patted my arm and drifted away to spread the news of my confession. I moved to the edge of the room, finding a spot near a pillar where I could observe. That is what I do. I am not the life of the party. I am the architect. I watched them. Bella, posing for photos with a ring she couldn't afford. Caleb, her fiancé, holding court with a group of men, his gestures wide and arrogant. I watched, and I gathered data. I noted who laughed at Patricia's whispers. I noted who looked at me with genuine concern and who looked with glee. I was building a file. And in my world, a file is more dangerous than a gun. The evening was just beginning, and they had no idea that the woman standing in the corner wasn't a victim. She was the auditor. And the audit had just begun. Dinner was announced, and we filed into the main hall. I was seated at the end of the table, naturally. The place for children and failures. Caleb sat at the center, flanked by Bella and Patricia. He was 29, loud, and radiating the kind of unearned confidence that usually signals deep insecurity. He was wearing a suit that was too shiny and a watch that was too big. "So, Caleb," Patricia said, her voice projecting to the back of the room. "Tell us about the big interview." We are all so excited. Caleb leaned back, swirling his wine. It is a game changer, he said. Ether logic. You guys probably haven't heard of it, it is pretty niche tech stuff. But they are the future. AI, blockchain, quantum synergy. He threw the words out like confetti, meaningless and bright. I took a sip of water to hide my smile. Quantum synergy wasn't a thing. It was a phrase marketing interns used when they didn't understand the product. But the table nodded in awe. I am meeting with the new executive team on Monday, he continued. They are flying in from Silicon Valley just for me. They need fresh blood. The old guard there, they are dinosaurs. Obsolete models. He laughed, and his eyes flicked to me. It wasn't accidental. It was a targeted strike. He looked at me, 41 years old, tired, silent, and he saw everything he despised. Age. Experience. Quiet competence. To him, I was the past. He was the future. Rachel, he called out. You used to be in tech, right? Before. I set my glass down. Yes, Caleb. I was. You should listen to this then, he said, magnanimous in his cruelty. You might learn something. The industry moves fast. If you are not disrupting, you are dying. That is the problem with your generation. You get comfortable. You stop innovating. You think experience matters more than agility. I listened. I let him talk. I let him dig his grave one shovel full of buzzwords at a time. He talked about disrupting the data paradigm. He talked about leveraging the cloud for maximized throughput. It was gibberish. It was the Dunning-Kruger effect in a cheap suit. He was so incompetent he couldn't even recognize his own incompetence. He thought he was impressing us. I saw him not as a threat, but as a liability. A security risk. If he walked into my building with that attitude and that lack of knowledge, he wouldn't just fail. He would break things. He wasn't just mean. He was dangerous. And he was trying to get into my house. I looked at Bella. She was gazing at him with adoration, completely unaware that he was a fraud. I looked at Patricia, preening over her future son-in-law. They were buying it. All of it. Because he was loud. Because he was a man. Because he promised them a future of reflected glory. I felt a cold clarity settle in my chest. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about protecting my company. My life's work. I couldn't let him near it. So, you are interviewing with the CEO? I asked quietly. Caleb scoffed. The CEO? No, she is a figurehead. Probably some diversity hire they keep around for the photos. I am meeting the real power. The guys who actually write the code. The table laughed. Patricia patted his hand. Oh, Caleb, you are terrible. I didn't laugh. I didn't blink. I just catalogued the insult. Diversity hire. Figurehead. Interesting, I said. Well, good luck on Monday. I do not need luck, Rachel, he sneered. I have talent. Maybe if you had a little more of that, you wouldn't be, well, here. He gestured to my empty plate, my silent demeanor, my entire existence. He reduced me to zero. I excused myself. I walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and leaned against the cool tile. I didn't cry. Tears are a waste of hydration. I looked at myself in the mirror. He was right about one thing. I was an obsolete model. I was the model that worked. The model that built empires while boys like him were still learning how to tie their ties. I took out my phone. I didn't call a therapist. I called my server administrator. Initiate a level 4 background check, I whispered. Target name, Caleb Vance. Priority 1. I hung up and washed my hands. The soap smelled like lavender and artificial luxury. I dried them thoroughly. I wasn't going back out there to eat. I was going back out there to wait. The scholarship fund was closed. The safety net was cut. I was done being the silent investor in their happiness. It was time to call in the debts. I walked out of the bathroom and found a quiet corner in the hallway. The party noise was a dull roar from here. I needed a moment to calibrate. To switch operating systems from family member to CEO. I thought about the check I had written just last week. $85,000. It had gone to a debt consolidation firm to clear Patricia's gambling debts. I had done it anonymously, through a shell company, because I didn't want her shame. I wanted her free. I thought about the $40,000 I had invested in Bella's lifestyle brand 2 years ago. The brand that consisted of 3 Instagram posts and a box of unsold t-shirts in her garage. I had called it a seed round. I knew it was a donation. I had spent my life propping them up. I was the invisible structural support of this family. I paid the bills they didn't know they had. I fixed the problems they didn't know existed. And in return, they treated me like a load-bearing wall. Necessary, boring, and something you could hammer nails into without asking. I had told myself it was love. I realized now it was a transaction. I was paying them to tolerate me. I was buying a seat at a table where I wasn't even welcome. It was pathetic. The realization didn't hurt. It just clarified things. It was like finding a bug in the code. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. You just have to fix it. I looked at my phone. The background check was running. The data was compiling. I could feel the hum of my servers miles away, working for me. My real family. My silicon children. I went back into the room. I sat down. I watched Caleb finish his wine. I watched Patricia laugh. I watched Bella preen. I didn't say a word. I just waited. The clock was ticking down to Monday morning. And when that alarm went off, they were going to wake up in a very different world. The drive home was the only time my pulse spiked. Not from fear, but from anticipation. I didn't go to my bedroom. I went straight to my home office, a climate-controlled sanctuary that hummed with the sound of my private servers. This was my war room. This was where I felt safe. I logged in. The dual monitors flared to life, casting a blue glow over my hands. I didn't need coffee. The adrenaline of the hunt was enough. I pulled up the background check. It was already 60% complete. I watched the progress bar crawl forward, a digital predator stalking its prey. While it loaded, I pulled up Caleb's LinkedIn profile. It was a masterpiece of fiction. Senior Director of Strategy. Visionary. Blockchain evangelist. It was a house of cards built on a foundation of fog. The progress bar hit 100%. The file opened. I read it. I read it twice. Then I leaned back in my chair and let out a short, sharp laugh. It was better than I had hoped. It was catastrophic. Caleb wasn't a senior director. He never had been. He was a mid-level project manager who had been fired 6 months ago for gross negligence. He hadn't just been incompetent, he had been dangerous. He had flagged clean data as corrupt to cover up his own missed deadlines. He had cost his previous firm millions in lost server time. He wasn't headhunted. He was blacklisted. I dug deeper into his financials. It was a sea of red. Maxed out credit cards. A leased BMW he was 2 months behind on. He was drowning, and he was using Bella as a life raft. He wasn't marrying her for love. He was marrying her because he thought our family had money. He thought he was marrying into a safety net. He had no idea he was marrying into a minefield. I spent the rest of the night preparing. I didn't sleep. I built a dossier. I printed out his termination letter. I printed out his bank statements. I printed out the logs of his data corruption. I organized them into a binder, tabbed and color-coded. It wasn't just evidence. It was a weapon. I sent a secure message to my head of security at EtherLogic. Monday morning. 9 a.m. Caleb Vance. Do not let him wait in the lobby. Escort him directly to the secure briefing room. Disable all recording devices. I wasn't going to interview him. I was going to dissect him. By the time the sun came up, I was ready. I showered, dressed in my sharpest suit, charcoal gray, tailored to kill, and drove to the office. The city was waking up, oblivious to the execution that was about to take place. I felt calm. Cold. Absolute. Monday morning arrived with the precision of a Swiss watch. I was in my office, watching the security feed on my tablet. Caleb walked into the lobby at 8:50 a.m. He was wearing the same shiny suit. He walked up to the reception desk like he owned the building. I watched him snap his fingers at Sarah, my receptionist, a woman with a doctorate in communications who spoke 4 languages. He didn't even look her in the eye. He just tossed his identification on the counter and checked his watch, performing impatience for an audience of 1. "I'm here for the executive team," I heard him say through the audio feed. "Don't make me wait." Sarah smiled that tight, professional smile that meant she wanted to strangle him. "Right away, Mr. Vance. Please follow security." 2 guards, men the size of vending machines, stepped out. Caleb's confidence faltered for a microsecond, then returned. He thought this was the VIP treatment. He preened. He adjusted his tie. He followed them into the elevator. I switched feeds. I watched him enter the secure briefing room. It was a windowless box designed for high-stakes negotiations. Soundproof. Sterile. Intimidating. There was a single metal table and 2 chairs. No water. No windows. Just silence. I let him wait. 5 minutes. 10. I watched him check his watch. I watched him tap his foot. I watched the arrogance slowly bleed out, replaced by the creeping unease of a man who knows he is in over his head but doesn't know why. At 9:15, I walked down the hall. I didn't knock. I swiped my biometric pass and the heavy steel door hissed open. I stepped inside. The door sealed behind me with a mechanical thud. Caleb spun around, a charm offensive ready on his lips. "About time," I was wondering when. The words died in his throat. He looked at me. He looked at the empty room. He looked back at me. His brain stuttered, trying to reconcile the obsolete model from the dinner party with the woman standing in front of him, radiating absolute authority. "Rachel," he stammered. What are you doing here? Did you sneak in? You can't be here. This is a secure area." I didn't answer. I walked to the table and dropped the binder. It landed with a heavy slap that echoed in the small room. I sat down. I gestured to the chair opposite me. "Sit," I said. It wasn't a request. It was a command. He sat. He looked confused, angry, and terrified all at once. "Is this a joke? Where is the executive team?" "I have a meeting with the CEO." "I am the executive team," I said softly. "And you are looking at the CEO. You?" He laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. "You're unemployed. Patricia said you had a breakdown. Stop playing games, Rachel. I'm going to call security." "I am security," I said. "I founded Ether Logic 12 years ago. I wrote the core code you tried to mansplain to me at dinner. I just closed a $12 billion merger that you, in your infinite ignorance, called disruptive. And this?" I tapped the table. "This is my building." The color drained from his face. It was like watching a candle get snuffed out. He slumped in his chair, the shiny suit suddenly looking like a costume. "No," he whispered. "No, that's impossible. Open the binder, Caleb." He stared at it. "Open it." He opened it with trembling fingers. The first page was his termination letter from his last job. Gross negligence. Data manipulation. I can explain," he choked out. "Page 2, I said. He turned the page. His bank statements. The negative balances. The past due notices. Page 3, I said. The list of buzzwords he had used in his application, cross-referenced with their actual definitions, highlighted in red to show his errors. You didn't come here for an interview, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. You came here for an audit. And you failed. Rachel, please, he said, the arrogance completely gone, replaced by a desperate, sweating panic. I needed this job. Bella, she expects a certain lifestyle. I did it for her. You lied to her, I corrected. You lied to everyone. You walked into my house and insulted me to elevate yourself. You called me obsolete. Do you know what happens to obsolete data in my system, Caleb? He shook his head, mute. It gets purged. I stood up. I have flagged you in the industry database as a security risk. Level red. No tech firm within 1,000 miles will hire you. You are radioactive. You wanted to be in the system. Now you are. You can't do that, he cried, standing up, reaching for me. That's illegal. I'll sue you. Sit down. I snapped. The force of my voice slammed him back into the chair. It is not illegal to flag a fraud. It is due diligence. Now get out of my building before I have you arrested for corporate espionage. He ran. He didn't grab his briefcase. He didn't look back. He scrambled out of the room like a rat fleeing a sinking ship. I stood alone in the silence. I took a deep breath. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like taking out the trash. Necessary. Messy. But now, the house was clean. I thought it was over. I underestimated the survival instincts of a parasite. By the time I got back to my desk, my personal phone was lighting up. Bella. Patricia. Even my estranged brother. How could you? Bella's text read. He came home crying. He said you sabotaged him. He said you were the secretary and you slept with the boss to get him blacklisted because you're jealous of us. The gaslight protocol. He had doubled down. He knew he couldn't win on facts, so he was playing on emotion. He was counting on their prejudice. They already saw me as the broken, jealous spinster. It was an easy story to sell. I didn't reply. I didn't defend myself. I called a courier. Pick up package from Ether Logic reception, I told the dispatcher. Deliver to the Glass House venue. Immediate priority. I put the binder in a box. I added a second folder, the receipts for Patricia's gambling debts and the wire transfers for Bella's business. Then I sent one text to the family group chat. Family meeting. Tonight. 7 p.m. Bella's apartment. I'm bringing the truth. I arrived at 7 sharp. The atmosphere was poisonous. Patricia was pacing, clutching a glass of wine. Bella was on the sofa, weeping, with Caleb kneeling beside her, looking the picture of the martyred saint. When I walked in, Patricia lunged. You vicious, jealous little. I didn't speak. I walked past her. I plugged my laptop into their massive flat-screen TV. Sit down, I said. Get out. Caleb shouted, standing up to block the screen. Don't listen to her. She's crazy. Sit down, Caleb, or I play the security footage of you begging in my boardroom. He sat. I pressed a key. The screen filled with the background check. Gross negligence. Fired. This is Caleb's employment record, I said calmly. He has been unemployed for 6 months. He was fired for lying. Bella stopped crying. She squinted at the screen. I clicked next. The bank statements. This is his financial status. He has $42 in his checking account. He is leasing the car with a credit card that is about to default. That's fake. Caleb screamed. She forged it. I clicked next. The receipts. This is the $85,000 I paid to clear Aunt Patricia's gambling debts last week. The room went silent. The air left the room. Patricia froze, her glass halfway to her mouth. Her eyes went wide, terrified. She looked at me, then at the floor. She knew. I clicked next. This is the $40,000 I put into Bella's t-shirt brand. I turned to them. I am the CEO of Ether Logic. I have been supporting this family in silence for a decade. I paid your bills. I fixed your mistakes. And in return, you let this fraud insult me in my own home. I looked at Caleb. He was shrinking, deflating, a balloon losing its air. Here is the deal, I said. I can leave the security risk flag on your file. You will never work in tech again. Or I can lift it. Caleb looked up, hope sparking in his eyes. But, I continued. You will accept a job at one of my subsidiaries. Data entry level 1. Manual image tagging for AI training. It is tedious, mind-numbing work. You will report to a 22-year-old intern named Kevin. The pay is minimum wage. You will work there for 1 year. You will pay off your debts. And if you quit, the flag goes back up. I looked at Bella. And you? You can stay with him and live on minimum wage, or you can wake up. I unplugged my laptop. I didn't wait for an answer. I walked to the door. Rachel, Patricia whispered. I didn't know. You didn't ask, I said. I walked out into the cool night air. I didn't feel heavy anymore. I felt weightless. Caleb took the job. He sits in a cubicle for 8 hours a day, clicking on pictures of traffic lights to train self-driving cars. He is miserable. It is the gilded cage I built for him. Bella left him 2 days later. She is currently working as a receptionist at a real estate firm, actually working, for the first time in her life. I sat in my office at Ether Logic, looking out over the city skyline. The silence here wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. It was the silence of a machine running perfectly. I had cut the financial cords. Patricia was on her own. Bella was on her own. I was no longer the load-bearing wall. I was the architect of my own life. I realized then that silence wasn't just a weapon. It was a shield. It was a filter. It kept the noise out and let the truth in. They had mistaken my silence for weakness, but it was the only thing that had kept them afloat. Now, they were learning to swim, and I was finally, truly, on dry land.